I have a confession. I didn't start to become a narcissist until some of you in the comments enabled me to become one. So I remember about 2 years ago, 1 or 2 years ago, I did a live stream, right? I did a review of a real life case study of someone who had 22 debts and $4.10 left over in their current month's budget. And then once we went over that scenario, somebody put a comment, the most useful video on the internet right now. And once I saw that, I was like, yes, every video that I upload is the most useful video on the internet right now. And that's what this video is. The most useful. Because who goes over debt payoff like I do? Nobody. In fact, you know what I did? I did another live stream today where I reviewed other people talking about debt payoff. I was like, no, I don't like this. I don't like that. How you describe like that. Ooh, I don't like the whiteboard. Oh, I like this because you put some video production here. But for the most part, I'm kind of a snob when it comes to explaining debt payoff because I get comments like this, and it fulfills my ego. It raises my ego. My ego's too big now. Okay, some people, used to write comments like, you're such a braggart or something like that, and I'm like, it's because my ego's too big when I get comments like this. You know what I'm saying? Anyways, let's go ahead and get started and create another video that is going to be the most useful video on the internet right now, because every video that I make is the most useful video on the internet right now. So let's go ahead and get started and learn to pay off debt using something that we used to call velocity banking, but it's not. We just call it the velocity method because the state of Illinois said, hey, Mr. Kwok Brothers, you know that thing you called accelerated velocity banking? You're not a bank, so we fine you $20,000. Ouch. But I heard they made millions of dollars selling their program or services, right? So maybe it's like one of those calculated corporate calculations where you know how like a corporation decides that they're going to pollute the environment because they need to make millions of dollars, and then getting fined by the government is like part of, a cost of doing business. Now, I'm not advocating that. I'm just kind of, you know, speaking out loud, right? Obviously, we should follow the law, do everything legally and ethically, right? Okay, so let's go ahead and get started with paying off debt. And what's the first step to paying off debt? It's obviously creating a budget, because your budget is your debt attack plan, right? So you have your income, expenses, leftover checking and savings. And look at all this debt, right? We got three credit cards, an auto loan, a student loan, and a mortgage. And on top of that, we got $2,000 of personal expenses not tied to debt. So the way that we have to think of this line is that even if we were debt free, we would still have to pay it, right? And what we're trying to do is get rid of all our debt to maximize our cash flow. And with this thing that we call the velocity method, we're going to assume we have the same income and the same expenses, but we're going to do something crazy. And I know this is really crazy, okay? We're not going to save money. We're not going to save money, okay? So here's the thing. People want to pay off debt, but then they're told you need to save money. And when you save money, you're not paying off debt. That's the secret to paying off debt. And this whole velocity thing, if you want to deconstruct it, is really just not saving money with the help of a line of credit. Nothing special about it. But it is special because I'm training you not to save money and do it in an easy manner. Okay? Right. Okay, so now what we're going to do is, as we save money, or not save money, I'm sorry, we're going to dump all of our money into something called a line of credit. So if you don't know what a line of credit is, it's basically a financial tool where you can borrow money, pay back, and then use it over and over again, right? So if you get a home equity line of credit for $60,000 and it's at 8%, okay, then basically you can go to the bank's website, click a button, it'll dump into your checking account, immediately transfer, and they'll charge you 8% annually, right? 8% annually. Okay. So what we're going to do is do this crazy thing where we move some debt into the line of credit, and then we're somehow going to increase our cash flow. Okay. And we're going to use the cash flow index, right? So basically, we have a formula of the balance of the debt divided by the monthly payment. and then it gives us a formula, right? And so it basically this is a numerical ranking system. And the lower the number, that's the one we want to pay off first. And the higher number, we want to pay that off last. Now, why do we want to pay off this 30-year mortgage last? Because we literally have to give somebody 235,000 for $1,100 of cash flow, right? Whereas we could just pay off these credit cards and get more cash flow, about 1,300 for only about $42,000 of debt, right? So do you want to pay $235,000 of debt for $1,100 of cash flow, or $42,000 of debt for more than $1,300 of cash flow? It's about bang for your buck, right? And so before we actually move debt into the line of credit, here's what we have to ask ourselves, okay? Will the bank give you a free and clear line of credit when you have all this debt and you don't have that much left over? The answer to that is no, because banks don't lend money to people who need it, right? So a lot of times people ask me, like, how do you get over this? And I say, just don't need money. I know that sounds really insensitive, but that's literally how the game works, okay? Like, you can't go to a bank when you need money. You only go to a bank when you don't need money, right? Same with the same rules of credit unions, right? Maybe credit unions charge a little bit less interest, but they both operate on the same principles, right? So that's yeah, that's how I beat Shaq. Actually, that's I'm just referring to Aaron Carter, because I recently saw a interview of him talking about how his mom wanted to falsely accuse Michael Jackson of crimes he didn't commit, and Aaron Carter wouldn't go through with it, which is kind of screwed up. But anyways, all right. So now let's go ahead and move this debt. So how much credit card debt do we have here? So 5, 15, 27. And I'm going to go ahead and sum this up, and this is going to be 47,000. And so now, guess what happens when we move this $47,000 of debt into the home equity line of credit? Well, these go to zero, right? It's like a balance transfer. Now, this is the part where I want you to stare at this, where we literally had the same income, because like, take a look at this. Income is the same, 6,000. And somehow we shift some expenses, and then this 500 turns into over $2,000 without making more income, because the income is the same, right? We still got to pay the debt. And this is the part where people, they stare at this and their mind is blown, right? Their mind is blown because they're like, how is this possible? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. I'm just making this all up, right? You know, what's funny is someone's accused me of not doing velocity banking, and of course we agree with that because we don't want the state of Illinois to come after us. But also said, you know, you did not do this thing called velocity banking. You're all mistaken. You just help people with their finances and mistaken it for velocity banking, and that's something that was not on my bingo card for 2026. Folks, I'm gonna be blunt with you. I'm so good that people have to ignore me. I mean, think about that, right? Like, I'm like the Tesla of debt payoff. Remember when Tesla came up with the free energy? I learned that from the video game Command and Conquer. Actually, I didn't even know who Tesla was until I never liked the game Command and Conquer, but I used to watch my brother play, and then they had some pretty cool like full motion videos of people pretending to be historical figures back in the day, and it was like so revolutionary back in like the 90s. But anyways, I'm rambling on and on. No, I don't know anything about Tesla, but what I'm saying is this, right? Sometimes when you get too good, people don't want to acknowledge that you exist, right? And I think that happens to me once in a while. And I'll tell you why. I'm sorry. I know I'm blabbing on and on again, and I know there's some of you watching this for the first time because according to YouTube, at least 20 something percent of you are all new. But I have literally seen people upload videos on YouTube, copy this pretty much this style of spreadsheet. And I'm not saying you can't copy it. I encourage you to copy it and then attribute it to someone else. You know, I learned about this thing called velocity banking, and they never say my name for some reason. And I know they copied the exact style of spreadsheet from me. Right? Well, I learned it from this YouTuber. It appeared to like, what about me? What about me? Little old me can it get a little credit? No, I'm just kidding. I really don't care. But I know who you are, right? because YouTube tells me who's the people who watch the channel the most. If you're a creator, you're like, oh, that guy's been watching. Love it. All right, so now will the bank let me go back to this. Sorry, I'm just rambling. Will the bank give you a free and clear line of credit? The answer to that is no. So why do we demonstrate with free and clear lines of credit? I'm going to tell you why. If I ever go through a realistic scenario like the 22 debt elimination, look how long this is, 1 hour and 30 minutes. And if you have a line of credit, it's because you treated it like a maxed out credit card like this person did, right? And so because I only want to be here for about 20 minutes or so recording this video, I don't want to be here for 1 hour and 30 minutes. And plus, you'll clearly see, wow, if I had done things correctly, I would probably never be in this position. And I probably have huge lines of credit if I had known that banks don't lend money to people who need it. And this line of credit would have been a lifesaver if I'd known, but you didn't, right? And that's why people think life is unfair. And it kind of is. It kind of is. All right. So, like I said before, banks don't lend money to people who need it. And the number one reason is that know this too, is that people who need money don't pay you back. Right? All right. So now how do we get the next month's balance? And what's the final step? Was we get this entire paycheck, $6,000, into the line, take our expenses out, and rinse and repeat over and over again. Okay. And so that means after every single month, the balance of the line of credit goes down by your cash flow. And then what you do is multiply it by the interest rate and you divide by 12. And so you get the average daily, or what essentially would be the average daily balance. And then I'm just going to copy and paste and then blah, 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 blah. And then we see that in 26 months, it got paid off. Okay. All right. So now 26 months, we paid off all the credit card debt. And there's going to be 47,000. 47,000. And then I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste. And then we have 3 more loans that we have. And luckily we got this loan calculator that I created from scratch right here, where all we got to do is put in the current month. Okay. Now I'm going to tell you something. Okay. So it's 26, 26, 26. So let's say we are at month 26. You know what the average person would just focus on? Let's tackle the highest interest rate, 7%. That's literally what their mind would focus on, right? And so again, we're just going to use the cash flow index. So if it's 32, you take the lowest one. What does that mean? We pay 12 grand to get $400 back in our cash flow, right? Whereas if we focus on paying this one, we're focused on paying 33 grand to get about $460 of cash flow, right? So we don't want to have to pay 33 grand. We want to recover the 400 first and then apply it to this and then pay off our debt. So I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste this into the line of credit. We're going to move the auto loan into a line of credit. And this would be 12869.8. Okay. And then what we're going to do is increase our cash flow. So by $395. And then our cash flow is about $2,400. And then I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste. And then this is going to be minus 2413.64. All right. And then now this is about 31 months. 31 months, we paid off the debt. All right. All right. So 31 months. And then it'll be 47 plus 22. And that's going to be 69K. And our debt is paid off for the auto loan. And then now we got to update this. So this is going to be 31. All right, we paid off the auto loan. Now we got the student loan. Now, you might hear on the internet, all loans are bad and lines of credit are good. So therefore, you should replace your loan with the line of credit. I will say that's pretty terrible advice, because let's say you have a 0% 30-year mortgage and you decide to replace it with the 8% line of credit, you're going to overpay, right? Like you can't just say all loans bad, lines of credit good. The reason why you might use a line of credit to pay off a loan is just because it's kind of like a bridge, right? The line of credit is the only tool The only debt tool where you could put all of your money in and then you can completely get it back, right? You can't do that with the loan. You certainly can't even do that with the credit card, right? Because why do you think most people don't overpay credit cards? Because you can't dump all your money to a credit card and then use that credit card to pay another credit card you have or other loans. Okay, there's a reason why you use a line of credit. And the I guess an analogy I can make is that it's kind of like when I don't know if you ever heard of middleware, right? So when one website is talking to another website, so for example, Salesforce talks to Quicken or whatever, right? They have software specialized just for that as middleware, as a bridge, so that the two websites don't have to directly connect with each other, even though they have the ability to do so. And companies pay a lot of money for that. I don't know if you knew that or not. Heck, even the bank that you're working with probably has software for that, even in their own website. Like if you look at their website, they're not just using just one website. They're using a collection of other websites and tools and APIs and all that. But something to think about that, when people say, why would you use a bridge? I mean, why do giant corporations pay tons of money for software that act like bridges, act like middleware? Tell them that you're smarter than them, okay? So, anyways, back to my point, okay? So here we have two options, which is we could just move the actually, let me actually say this. We don't have two options here. We actually have three. But here we don't want to move the loan into a line of credit unless it makes sense, right? So even with the relatively high cash flow index, if the interest rate of the loan is same or higher, it's safe to move, right? If it's like 7% loan, 8% line of credit, a little iffy, but we're not going to lose that much money, okay? And we'll still pay it off relatively quickly. But if you move a 4% loan, especially if it's long-term 30 years, and you move that into a line of credit, that's 8% or 15%, you're definitely going to lose money, right? And why is that? Because what does this high cash flow index mean? It essentially means that you pay little payment for big balance of debt. So think about it. Big balance of debt is originally at 4, now it's at 8, but you get itty bitty amount of cash flow for that, right? And I'm just going to give you an extreme example of this. What if the payment was $1 and the balance was 223,000, and you moved that 223,000 from a 3% to an 8%, and all you got was $1 cash flow back? Well, in that case, it makes no sense to move that entire debt into a line of credit because there's so little cash flow, which is kind of the whole point of this, that would offset like the interest, right? So, anyways, enough babbling for today. And the reason I babble is just because this is the most important video of the internet right now. And whatever I say is the most important thing. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. All right. So now let's go ahead and move that loan into a line of credit. So it's going to be plus 32172.18. And now let's go ahead and increase our cash flow because we have an extra $464 there. And look at that, over $2,800 of cash flow. The cash must flow. I think that was a quote from the movie Dune. No, it actually wasn't. It actually wasn't. Like, it was the spice must flow. I'm gonna tell you, like, Dune is one of those things like people get excited about, and I have no idea what the movie was about. I was like, "What are we?" I heard those books are huge, and then I remember watching the movie with Timothy Chalamet, and I'm like, "What is going on?" I had no idea what was going on for the entire movie. All right, so now 43 months. It's gonna be 69 plus 40. 69 plus 40. Oopsie, that's 109K. 109K. All right. So now we have the mortgage, right? The mortgage at 43 months, what's the balance? Okay, right here, 43. And should we use a line of credit to pay the loan? Yes, we can do that. In fact, there's two main ways that we can do it. So the way I want to say way number one, well, I don't think that's grammatically correct. Method number one is extra payments. This is the default option that nobody does. And why is that? It's because people have to think about how much they're sending every single month for that extra payment. And if you overpaid, then it introduces friction in how money flows between your bank accounts. That's why nobody overpays loans and nobody overpays credit cards, because credit cards have the same problem, right? And so what we're going to do is move a portion of the loan into the line of credit. So even it's like 8, 15, or 30%, not a big deal. And then what we can do is just dump all our money into one place to make it easy to pay off the debt, right? Like, what would you rather do? A method that where all you have to think about is your checking account and your line of credit going to zero, or actually making extra payments where you have to decide how much you're going to send over to the loan, right? And this is why nobody overpays loans. It's not that they can't, it's default option that nobody does. Kind of like going to the gym in January. You know, that going to the gym in January is like the cheapest option. And the gym doesn't even expect you to go, because if you actually went, they lose their profit, right? So that's just how it is. Okay. All right. Well, so where are we today? This is doc. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're just going to move a piece of the loan into the line of credit. And let me just show you how this works. So let's say that we just moved $6,000. Actually, what's the current balance? So yeah, $6,000 of a loan into the line of credit. Okay, so that would mean that this is 213,000. So if we go ahead and do that, right, and I'm just going to do this, it'd be plus 6000, and then well, look at that, it just gets paid off in 2 months, 2 months, 2 months, right? And then if you ever just do the calculations, and I have a calculator for this, you see it gets paid off in 5.2 years, right? And here's the other thing too. Okay, you know, a lot of times people are afraid of like, oh, high interest rates. Oh my goodness, you know, end of the world. So if I do 15, look at this. You end up paying like 2 more grand, or like 1.5 grand. I don't know the exact number, but you saw like it didn't like literally double the amount of interest that you paid. But let me just do 30. Right. So now this goes up a little bit, but you know, that's why I don't really fear high interest rates if you have enough cash flow, right? As long as you have enough cash flow, that interest rate don't really matter. But here's the other thing too, you know, don't be stupid and think, oh, loan good, line of credit bad, so I'm going to move this entire loan into a line of credit. And look at this. If you move this entire $219,000 in a 30-year 30% credit card, you'd never pay it off with your cash flow. That would be a no-no, right? That would be an absolute no-no. Okay. All right. Well, that's it. Hold on. I didn't even write the payoff. That's 5.3 years. Okay. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. Where are we? Where are we? All right. So this is going to be 5.3 years. 40, 30 divided by 12 plus 5.3. That's 8.88 years, and we're debt free. I think I did the math right, but I'm a little bit sleepy. All right. Well, that's it for today, folks. Or at least this video. Remember, this is the most important video on the internet right now, or the most useful one, but I think it's the most important too. The most useful video on the internet right now. Okay, well, have a great day, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye-bye.